Good morning, everybody. My name is Mike Smarik. I'm the Deputy Administrator for PSPRS. And with me is Robert Ortega, our Member Services Director. Although that's his title, the last about a year and a half, he's been primarily assigned to this pension administration system project that we started. So he's working very hard on that. But what we thought we'd do today is just take a couple minutes and give you an update on where we are. We started this project about a year and a half now ago. Probably one of the, if not the largest project undertaken by PSPRS. Robert's going to go through some of the time frames and milestones for the project, and in particular for you all as employers and participants in this project. There's going to be a lot of process change that results from this project, but it's all with the hope that it's going to be more efficient, going to give you a lot more information that you haven't had in the past, and improve the way we do business, and bring us, up to date with our technology. There are actions that are going to be required for employers and local boards, and that's part of what we want to talk about today is making sure that you follow up with that, because to ensure a successful project, it's not just us at PSPRS working on this, it's you all participating with us in that to make it a successful project, because it's going to be out there and you guys are going to have to use that system in order to feed us the information that we need to maintain records for our members. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Robert and let him talk about what's been going on lately.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Again, good morning, everyone. So just kind of a quick timeline so far of what we've accomplished. As Mike mentioned, we began this project about a year and a half ago. Really in the fall of 2021 is when we began some of the prep work, but the true implementation project began last year. And so we're currently in our phase one of this project, which is planned to be concluded at the fall of 2025. What that basically means is that's going to be the bulk of our core functionality, being able to process retirements internally, being able to get contributions reported through our employer services portals, things of that sort is what we're focusing in on phase one. Activities to date that we've done is a lot of that initial design configuration and validation of that core functionality of the internal processing. We've also began, and probably I'd say about 3 or 4 months ago, began the initial configuration around the employer self-service portal. So we're going to have brand new portals that both our employers and local boards will be able to log into and do their current functions within the system under this current phase. We're also in the process of, and we have completed our configurations around contribution reporting and demographic reporting. And some of our employers are probably familiar around this because we've begun some of that testing, which I'll share a little bit later as well. And then what we've also begun, and this has happened in the last, I'd say about month and a half, 2 months, if we began our initial design on the healthcare component. So allowing enrollments for our members within the ASRS plan, allowing employers to report their enrollments of healthcare so that subsidy can be calculated, pension deductions can happen on those premiums, and payments can be made to employers. So we're beginning that process and the file layout configuration around that. You'll hear a lot of file layout configurations because one of the things we are focusing in on is really trying to transition to a more 21st century processing. I know a lot of you are probably familiar with completing forms, sending forms to PSPRS. We're trying to get that more in electronic fashion so that you can have more self-service within our portals. So the next slide here is just kind of the ongoing milestones, what we will be working through till our go live in 2020, actually in 2024. I don't know why we said in 2025 in our last slide, but 2024 is actually when we go live for phase one. Right now we are in our contribution file testing process. So for those employers who are participating in our bi-weekly employer updates, you're very familiar with this. For those who are not, what we're doing right now is basically ensuring that the contribution file specs, once we go live, are going to properly import into our system, properly validate. And so we're trying to get a lot of prep work done ahead of the game so when we go live, it's as smooth of a process for you all as possible. We will be kicking off our demographic file import testing starting actually this month. What that means is rather than remit paper enrollment forms, rather than send emails on when terminations are happening, you're going to have an opportunity as an employer to create a demographics file to upload into our system, and the necessary processes will occur there. That's not to say it's a requirement for every employer, because we do understand that some of our employers don't have these type of actions on a regular basis. So there will be functionality within the portals for manual transactions to occur. But we will, for those who are testing files or will be utilizing files, we will be beginning that testing process here shortly. Then starting at the end of this year into the new year, we will start beginning the testing around our health insurance files. So again, for those employers who are going to be planning to utilizing file upload reporting, there's also obviously going to be specs around that, which we'll be sharing hopefully here in the next couple months to begin that process. Then starting in the fiscal year 2024, towards the end of next fiscal year, we'll begin our user acceptance testing. And so what that basically is internally we'll be testing and validating all of our configurations. It may be opportunities as well to do some user testing on the portals for our employers to make sure that when we go live, it's as smooth of a process as possible. Then starting in July of 2024, we'll begin our employer training. And so you'll be participating in training opportunities to understand the new system from the portal perspective and what your accountabilities and responsibilities are around there. And then as you can see, starting in October 24 is really our go live state for phase 1. And again, phase 1 is really just the core functionality. Phase 2 is where I'm really excited, because that's where we're really going to focus in on that self-service opportunity for our members and employers from a paperless process. So when you're processing as a local board disability determinations, you'll be able to report that information via the portals. For members who are looking to retire, rather than reach out to our office for a retirement packet, they'll be able to go into the portal and apply for retirement via the self-service portals. So we're really excited about that functionality, and that's phase 2, which will start in October of 2024 and then concludes in September of 2025 is when we hope to go live with that second phase of functionality. So a couple things that to be aware of from an impact perspective. We are going to be making online payments a requirement for all of our invoices. There's going to be functionality within the system to actually make payments directly. And I know right now you guys are used to waiting for an invoice, going to e-bill, making payments there. All of that's going to be centralized within this new portal. So we're going to be going through a process to require online payments. We're also, when it comes to credits, going to be applying those credits directly, automatically, in a first in, first out type of process. To avoid some of the issues that we kind of incur right now, where employers who thought they were taking a credit didn't take a credit on an invoice, then have to reach out to our office, and we have to do manual transactions to back things out. This is automatically going to apply those credits. Other items, I'm not going to go through everything here, but other items, contribution adjustments, you'll be able to report directly. As I mentioned before, health insurance, you're going to be reporting directly within our portals, and we're going to be going through a paperless process for that as well. The one thing I do want to bring up for our portals is that we're going to be putting that onus back to our employers in terms of managing users, contacts. I know, again, right now you guys reach out to us when you have to add a user, manage users. So we're going to be going through an exercise probably towards the end of this year or mid-year to kind of identify administrators who are going to be the administrators of these portals, so we can start beginning setting up that access around there. So a couple things to really be aware of is making sure you know who your point of contact is for this project, because we do have and have identified for each of our employers a point of contact. They should be participating in our bi-weekly updates. so that they share that information with our employers and those stakeholders involved in the project. So if you're not aware of who your point of contact is, reach out to us and we can certainly share that with you. One thing I would say, if you are the point of contact, please make sure you're doing the information sharing with those stakeholders involved. So if you have an IT group, if you have a third-party vendor that you use for your processes, making sure they're getting that information when they need it so that we can make this as smooth of a process as possible. And then the other thing is to review and address any action items that we put out there. You know, like I said, we're in our testing process right now for contributions. Make sure you're participating in that. When we're sending out surveys and getting information, make sure you're participating in that. And then, of course, as we get to our training events, making sure you're participating in that as well. So to kind of close things up, I'll go ahead and kick it back to Mike so we can close up our process here.
So Robert talked a lot about testing and you saw a lot of it in the schedule too, right? There are various kinds of testing that has to go on when you implement one of these systems. So I'm going to just steal from a colleague's presentation that he did before and say, how many of you have implemented like a major system, a payroll or accounting system, whatever it might be? So how many of you did absolutely no testing before you put that into place? So it's an important thing. I mean, data conversion and testing are probably the two biggest things that you have to deal with when you implement one of these large systems. And so we have employers that we need to have you update your contribution files to the new file formats and send those in for us to test and make sure that they're right. So we've got due dates for each group and file types, all those things. I just can't stress the importance any more than you've got to participate in that testing. We're having a little difficulty right now in getting some employers to do that, but please, whoever is responsible for that in your organization, if you could go back and talk to them and make sure that these testing, and we have to meet the schedules too. We can't wait till the end right before go live and start testing. We got to do that now. And so just wanted to take a little bit of time and stress the importance of your participation in that testing. You know, if you submit a file and you haven't tested it, and after go live, it's probably not going to upload correctly. The other thing that we're doing with the new system is if contributions are late, the system is going to automatically calculate the penalty on that. So if you can't upload your file, most likely you're going to start incurring some late penalties. So you don't want to be in that position. So anyways, just wanted to take that time to stress the importance of your participation in that. And we'll be around this afternoon if you have other questions, or if you see us in the hallway, come up and ask. We'd entertain any questions you might have. At this point, I'd like to introduce the next speaker, who is Trustee Brian Moore. He's the chair of our Defined Contribution Committee, and I think he's going to give a brief update on that. Thank you.
Thank you.